Hey, Carl I, the biker guy here. I'm at the Purple Heart Hall of Honor in New Windsor, New York. This place is a repository of Purple Heart recipients and their stories. We're going to go inside and learn all about the Purple Heart. I'm here with Peter Bedrosian, Program Director for the Hall of Honor, the Purple Heart Hall of Honor here in
New Windsor,
New York. Peter, it's a pleasure to meet you. It's an honor to be here.
Nice to have you here, Carl.
Tell us a little bit about this place, if you would, please.
Well, this place was dedicated November 10th of 2006 as a place whose mission is to collect, preserve, and share the stories of Purple Heart recipients. Now, our New York State facility, ironically, you'd think of it as a national in our name, that represents who we represent, not for whom we work. New York State began historic preservation in 1850 when it purchased Washington's headquarters 6 miles from here, and they continue that today with the Hall of Honor.
Now, I know that there was a Washington cantonment here as well, and that is was part of his last fort here?
The last encampment of the Northern Army was here on the grounds that we occupy today, and that was a way of kind of waiting for the treaty to be announced from Paris, and it was a cork in the bottle. Between West Point and here, the British were basically bottled up in New York. They knew we had the Army here. They wouldn't come north, we wouldn't go south until peace was announced, and then the Army could be let go to go home. So what happens here is the cantonment is sold off, of course, and in the 1920s, people knew this property was being sold off for our housing, wanted to preserve the ground. The Purple Heart is created in 1932, and to celebrate the bicentennial of Washington's birth and save the property, a large public ceremony was held on these grounds May 28th of 1932. At that time, 137 World War I veterans, 1 Marine, rest Army, came here and rewarded their Purple Hearts.
That's amazing. Now, the Purple Heart, the whole mission of this place is to preserve the memories of these and the stories that go along with those memories, correct?
Yes.
And so, how does someone get their story told here?
Well, there is no master list upon which to draw. The individual person's records, of course, contain the information, so the recipients, their families or friends need to enroll. What they do is there's a form that we have for enrollment, and they have to provide the evidence that the Purple Heart was actually awarded. Why? We can't make that decision. This way we maintain the integrity of the Roll of Honor. So for example, your discharge papers, a Purple Heart certificate, for those who died in service, the name is engraved in the back. A photo of the back of the medal will suffice to show they were awarded their Purple Heart.
What message do you have for people maybe watching this video about this place? And I got to tell you, if you don't get goosebumps while you're here, you don't have blood running through your body, So what message would you tell the people at home to come visit this place?
One of the messages is, remember, history may have happened long ago, but never far away. Your friends, your neighbors, your relatives may very well be the people who earned the Purple Heart and sacrificed for the country. The place here honors the warrior. We know there may be disagreements about individual wars and missions that we have, but the people who fight that sacrifice all the same. And it's important to remember their history. Keep that history alive, because if we don't, well, what happens to us down the road? We forget about that. We overlook them, overgrown cemeteries and things, but those men and women who went before us did something we didn't necessarily have to do. And this is a way of saying thank you to them every single day.
The Hall of Honor, the Purple Heart Hall of Honor, is also a historic reference to different wars and different things that have happened here, or happened throughout our history. Where did you get some of these displays that you have?
Most of the items we have here were in the possession of the state of New York. Others are donated. A couple of the ammunition we have, in the cases, some of the clothing we have were donated. As a matter of fact, from the 1932 award ceremony, we do have 3 of the Purple Hearts awarded on that day.
That's amazing.
In our building here, we have a uniform from one of those recipients, part of which is on display here in the Hall of Honor. And for the basics of it, we culled the archives the state has and then put out word for donations.
Oh, amazing. You actually have Purple Hearts that were issued that day, but you also have a Purple Heart that's pretty special as well.
Well, we had the forerunner. The actual inspiration was a badge of military merit. Created during the Revolutionary War, this one was awarded on May 3rd of 1783 to Elijah Churchill, and it now is on display here in the hall to provide that continuity of timeline between the 18th century and the 21st.
That's amazing. So this is the actual badge that was awarded to him,
Yes, so it's much faded. It's a little worse for wear.
and it was a cloth badge back
Cloth
then.
badge, right? It was originally a heart-shaped piece of purple cloth or silk by regulation to be worn on the uniform coat. And as a result, we have that one in our possession. It was donated to us, and we now have that in our possession. And it gives that sense of continuity. Why is the Purple Heart purple? Well, look at the original award. Why is Washington's profile on it? Again, he created that award, and it honors his memory and achievements.
So today's Purple Heart is designed after that,
Correct.
And so it has history all the way back to 17...
Well, the orders were written on August 7th of 1782, and the actual award date was May 3rd of 1783. Matter of fact, next Sunday, although this is long past when you'll be doing this, we're having a day, Purple Heart Appreciation Day here.
Oh, wow.
And this year, for that ceremony, we're going to commemorate non-combatants who earned the Purple Heart, chaplains, medical personnel, civilians at different times who earned Purple Hearts, because we think of this award as a combat award, and you don't need to be in combat or a combatant to earn a Purple Heart.
Just have to be injured by enemy fire.
Yes.
Okay.
The language used by enemy action, because if you're a prisoner of war, for example, the treatment you receive might result in injury to you. So active terrorism count nowadays, and so there are a broad range of conditions under which a person might be harmed by enemy action.
While I was going around the museum here, I've noticed that the earliest female to be issued a Purple Heart, would you tell us about her?
Beatrice Mary MacDonald was a Canadian-born naturalized citizen, went with her surgeon into the Army in 1917, found herself at a British clearing hospital in Belgium, which the Germans happened to bomb one evening with an aircraft bomb, lost her right eye to shrapnel, and would not be evacuated home, went back into the field, was then pulled out of the line, served through the end of World War I. Ultimately, she received the Distinguished Service Cross, British Military Medal, French Croix de Guerre, and like all those World War I vets, had to apply for the Purple Heart, and hers was awarded to her on January 4th of 1936.
Amazing. Typically we don't think of females receiving Purple Hearts that far back. It's kind of amazing.
But she happened to be in this hospital, and again, like World War I vets at the time had to do in the 30s, had to apply for it. There may have been others. It's simply we know about Beatrice because of her family keeping the history alive and then bringing that to us.
Wow.
So she is the first known female recipient, and there might be somebody else out there. Perhaps someday the family of that person will come forth and say, oh yes, no, my great-grandmother or someone.
So the bottom line message here is that if you are aware of a Purple Heart recipient and their story is not in the repository here, you need to get it here and honor their memory, honor their service, honor their sacrifice by telling their story here at the Hall of Honor.
Very much so. I mean, it's the way we keep the history alive, and people come along, isn't that a difficult thing to do? You're looking at people who are killed or wounded. You go, yes, that's true. It's perhaps not the best day of someone's life. But look at the bright side of recognizing that sacrifice and keeping that memory alive. Some of the stories we have here besides Beatrice's are inspiring. Yeah, it was a difficult time in someone's life, but they rose to the occasion. They rose through difficult, almost impossible circumstances. In another case, it was a validation for family and friends to recognize that sacrifice, and that's a pretty optimistic story.
Yeah, it is. Peter, I can't thank you enough for all the hospitality and time that you've taken with us today and doing this. I appreciate it very much.
I appreciate you coming by, and as you can tell by my rapid rate of speech, I enjoy talking about the Hall of Honor, so my last message is please stop by. We're open 6 days a week, 12 months out of the year, and essentially whether you're a toddler or a centenarian, there's something here for you to see and appreciate in both of our sites. And our site particularly, come and find out about it, learn about the history of this country and how men and women have preserved it for over 200 years.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The document you see is the actual citation to Sergeant Elijah Churchill, written in George Washington's own pen. On the kiosk behind me are the stories of Purple Heart recipients in their own words. To press on a photo and hear the person talk about their experience. Staff Sergeant Ambrosio Guillen, in a forward outpost of Korea, came under heavy attack. During the attack, he was injured, yet continued to lead his men. Finally, even though they were under overwhelming odds, the enemy retreated. Sergeant Guillen ended up bleeding to death of his wounds 48 hours before the armistice in Korea. On the screen behind me is Marcus Simmons. He's the uncle of a good friend of mine. Now, Marcus was KIA in World War II and is buried in Florence, Italy. Now, this friend of mine did some significant work to make sure that his uncle was admitted as part of the registry here. So if you know people that have a Purple Heart, you need to get them here, get their information here, and get them as part of the registry. There is no documentation that comes from the Department of Defense to let this Hall of Honor know anything about when somebody receives a Purple Heart. So you need to make sure you put these folks in here. Sergeant Frank J. Emberson was wounded in Luxembourg on the 21st of December 1944. A bullet passed through his arm and was deflected from his chest by the packet of family photos you see.